Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
But Guido, now I cannot see you anymore because that search people thing is now. I'll close that area because. Okay.
Good morning. So that is clear. We are having some technical fun here. That's great. Adjiedj, it's so great to meet with you online. We've spoken a few times.
I
And it has
like
been
this
fun
as
every
well.
time.
And I have this Vietnamese face behind me so that you can. It's on the left, so that you can feel. So I feel a little bit in Vietnam now.
Ah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Well,
You
you
can
have
have
the.
you can have a look. It's all because we have lots of it's all lots of art here because I believe in I collect art.
Yeah, I
Oh, but
can see that.
now
Well,
now the webcam is.
this is perfect. This is perfect. Adjiedj, the most beautiful thing about you is your shirt today. That's for sure.
It's Turkish. I love globalization. So I'm really not happy about this trend of deglobalization that I call slowbalization because thanks to globalization, I can get the shirt in Turkey online.
Yeah, well, it looks great on you. So make sure you wash it by hand or let it wash by hand.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
of course.
To all the people checking in today, it's very great that you are here. We have 75 attendees already. I'm going to give everybody a chance to take some coffee and prepare themselves for what promises to be a very exciting hour with Mr. Adjiedj Bakas. I have my assistant Dean standing next to me, and he is preparing the slides as we go. Yeah, we're not going to share. Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, so we have some videos over there, so I can click on them. Or do you want to do that? Because you should be doing that, actually. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look. 75 attendees, about 100 registrations, so we're doing very well. I see Hans van den Born is checked in. He's from Thailand. You two have a history together, is that right, Adjiedj?
Yes, of course. I had to I had a speaking engagement at Hans event in I think October or November last year in Thailand, in Bangkok. It was fantastic.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, I heard many good stories about it. Unfortunately, I couldn't join. What do you think about this concept of webinars, Adjiedj? Is that something that you applaud? Do you think it's like the real thing, like speaking on stage? Do you feel as confident? Elaborate on that, please.
Well, I personally think that live and on stage is nicer, but webinars work. I mean, they are a fine alternative. Of course, look, we are living in a corona world, and I just read this morning that this virus is much smarter than we thought because it's mutating all the time. So there was one researcher in Holland who now publishes it this morning. He said that even if we find a vaccine,
Yeah.
the virus is mutating so fast, we're going to need a new vaccine in a couple of months again. So
Yeah.
that, my God, where has this thing been hiding?
Is this ever going to stop? That's if you would know that, then you would be
Then I would be a
multi-millionaire.
billionaire.
Can I call you a true teller of the modern era, or do you find that offensive, Adjiedj?
No, that's fine. I find nothing offensive. You can tell
Nothing offensive.
anything you want.
So about today is it's all looking very good. We have now your presentation on screen. The program is that we would like this to be a very interactive session. So what we start with is that we want to instruct everybody to just ask their questions in the chat, please, and we will try and handle as much as we can. So Adjiedj, sometimes I will try and stop you for a while, and I want to also give the audience some chances to ask their questions and direct them to me.
I see that people are from Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand. Maybe it would be nice that we ask people first where they come from, because I would like to get the impression of and maybe also which industries they come from.
Mm-hmm.
Because if everybody's from the travel industry, then we have a different webinar than when we have a whole broad range of industries.
Let me see if I can throw out a poll about that, and then we start in 2 minutes. How does that sound?
Perfect. Perfect.
Let me see what kind of industries I'm gonna say what kind of industry.
I already see reinsurance industry, engineering, hospitality, smart cities, recycling.
It's going to be always difficult to find the red line here. The Netherlands is of course traditionally strong in a few sectors. The agri-food sector, water sector, that's what we're strong in. I see now we have what I think is good to pin down on is we have world developments and world trends, and that is your strength. And then focusing on the ASEAN region, that would be, I think, the way to go about this webinar.
Okay, so for example, if one of the trends is there will be a Cold War between America and China, it was already there, but it's going to intensify because I think that America is going to use this crisis not to pay the debts to Thailand, which is quite a lot of money. I think it's $1.1 trillion. And then we could maybe chat about the discussion, the consequences might be for the ASEAN region.
Yeah, totally. I think that would be a great start. What we have standing ready, and what I believe Tien has standing ready, is a video. Let's start with sharing that, shall we?
Yeah, perfect.
Can you do that? Yeah. So this is going to be the one about Mike, the great realization, hindsight 2020. Is that what you want?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Tell me the one about the virus again. Then I'll go to bed.
Boy, you're growing weary, sleepy thoughts about your head.
Please, that one's my favourite. I promise just once more.
Okay, snuggle down, my boy, though I know you know full well. The story starts before then, in a world I once would dwell. It was a world of waste and wonder, of poverty and plenty, back before we understood why hindsight's 2020. You see, the people came up with companies to trade across all lands, but they swelled and got much bigger than we ever could have planned. We'd always had our wants, but now it got so quick. You could have anything you dreamed of in a day, and with a click. We noticed families had stopped talking. That's not to say they never spoke, but the meaning must have melted, and the work-life balance broke. And the children's eyes grew squarer, and every toddler had a phone. They filtered out the imperfections, but amidst the noise, they felt alone. And every day the skies grew thicker, till you couldn't see the stars. So we flew in planes to find them, while down below, we filled our cars. We'd drive around all day in circles. We'd forgotten how to run. We swapped the grass for tarmac, shrunk the parks till there were none. We filled the sea with plastic, because our waste was never capped, until each day when you went fishing you'd pull them out, already wrapped. And while we drank and smoked and gambled, our leaders taught us why. It's best to not upset the lobbies. More convenient to die. But then in 2020, a new virus came our way. The governments reacted and told us all to hide away. But while we all were hidden, amidst the fear and all the while, the people dusted off their instincts. They remembered how to smile. They started clapping to say thank you and calling up their mums. And while the car keys gathered dust, they would look forward to their runs. And with the skies less full of voyagers, the earth began to breathe, and the beaches bore new wildlife that scuttled off into the seas. Some people started dancing, some were singing, some were baking. We'd grown so used to bad news, but some good news was in the making. And so when we found the cure, and were allowed to go outside, we all preferred the world we found to the one we'd left behind. Old habits became extinct, and they made way for the new, and every simple act of kindness was now given its due.
But why did it take a virus to bring the people back together?
Well, sometimes you've got to get sick, my boy, before you start feeling better. Now lie down and dream of tomorrow and all the things that we can do. And who knows, if you dream hard enough, maybe some of them will come true. We now call it the Great Realization. And yes, since then there have been many. But that's the story of how it started and why hindsight's 2020.
So that's the end of it. We are sharing the YouTube link for those who are having a difficult time seeing that.
1 second, I have to turn off my phone because
Is my computer off? Here, put it in. Put it in the... Is it in?
okay.
Okay.
Okay, this video is viral on YouTube today. It is it's made by a British artist a couple of weeks ago, and since then it has been going on all over. I really like it very much because it really sets us to think and to rethink. Are we really? Because I think a vaccine is going to come sooner or later, but are we really going back to the world of, let's say, December 2019, or not? Because I think it is not this. It's not going to. That is not going to happen. We're going to see the new normal is starting now, and so let's focus on the first trend that is called the Great Realization and the new normal. What is this? All these questions keep popping up.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow it.
What about human?
So let's see. We have a question from Peter. Let's start with that. Is that all right? It's about human nature and our poor ability to change, especially when a vaccine allows a return to the new normal. Do you really believe that if we find a vaccine, that things will still going to change?
Well, the point is, I believe a vaccine is going to be here within 1 or 2 years. But the virus is mutating itself. This is a very, very intelligent virus. So the virus is mutating and then it comes in a different form, or then we get new viruses. Don't forget, there are millions and millions of viruses around. And in the old days, before globalization, a virus, for example, when a virus was located in the north of Vietnam, it only stayed there. But now, due to globalization, we humans, we travel all over the world and we carry the viruses with us. So due to globalization, due to this hyper-connected world, viruses are going to be all over in this whole century. And even if we find a vaccine for this virus, we'll get a mutated edition of this one, or we get a new one. So we will have to change now. So I think we're going to learn to live with periods of lockdowns. So after this is over, the lockdown is now being eased in many countries now. But sooner or later, I already saw in South Korea and also in Japan, people are fearing a new wave coming up. So I think the governments are going to decide to enforce the lockdowns again, and then they will loosen it again, and then it's going to. So we are going to have to learn to live with temporary lockdowns.
No, go on. Go on to the next slide. That's not a very, let's say, exciting foresight. Can you go on to the next slide?
No, definitely not. But what I see that there are quite a lot of questions about the future of food. Maybe we could elaborate on that first.
Yeah, sure.
Because what we see here in Holland, we have this province of Brabant. And Brabant is the region where we have a lot of meat industry. And Brabant is also the one where most people are infected by COVID, by this virus. And we don't know exactly yet what the connection is, but there is a researcher in Holland. He's called Maurice de Hond. On his website, maurice.nl, it's in English and in Dutch. You can see what he says. He says that the virus is spreading through two ways: through aerosols in cruise ships, hotels, and planes. And the second one is through the air, especially in regions like in Brabant, where we have a lot of meat industry. And so that what we can see is that the meat industry, I don't know if you could call it polluted the airs, but it influenced the immune system of people who work in the meat industry, especially the people who work in the slaughterhouses, because there's a lot of blood there, and a lot of these viruses can be transmitted through blood. And we also see that in America. So I love meat. And I think that I really don't want to go back to a world without meat, but we really need to rethink the food chain, the global food chain, and the way we produce meat. And I think we're going to do that because we will have to adapt.
Yeah.
And there are already some brilliant people, for example, at the Wageningen University, and that's the agricultural university in the Netherlands, who are already thinking and trying to innovate and rethink how we should organize that, and also the global food chain, because the global food chains are just too long. And because they're so long and so complicated, that's also too difficult for this
So what you're going to
post-COVID.
see, what people say, is that we're going to see more regional supply chains, that
Yes.
shorter supply chains, not as long anymore. Can you add some sense to that, Adjiedj? Because I can't see China falling back, as said, that they are the manufacturer of the world, as they say. Do you think they will go down to completely back to scratch again, or how do you think that will end up?
Well, look, in the past 25 years, 1 billion people all over the world, mostly in Asia, were able to escape poverty thanks to what I call the magic mix. And that's a magic mix of capitalism, globalization, free trade, fossil fuels, and very good governments. One of the things I have to say about ASEAN countries and also about the governments, the quality of governments is quite good. And they have the system of state capitalism, so that works fine. So with this system of state capitalism, and the ASEAN countries have to reinvent themselves, and the government is going to play a major role in that. And one of the things is we have to decide is what is this going to do with China? Because let's not forget, it started in China, and in the first 2 months, in October, November, China did not tell us anything about it. You see this cartoon here about the Chinese President Xi Jinping, who said, "Don't worry about the coronavirus, we have everything under control." And they did not have it under control. No. So there are several things that are playing there. One is shame, second is nationalism, and of course they didn't want to lose face. But I think this is going to cost China a lot. They're not going to back to 1970. Don't forget, in 1970, China was poorer than Somalia. Now it's one of the richest countries in the world. And I think China will emerge quite strong from this crisis. It will stay a powerful and rich country, but there will be a backlash. First backlash will be that they kept it quiet for so long. And they did the same with the SARS virus 18 years ago. They kept it quiet for too long. And I think that is something they should... On the Chinese social media like WeChat, you see a lot of the young people in the Chinese cities complaining about this stupid rural people who are eating eating bats and all these animals, because bats are really spreading viruses. So that is nice to see. It's nice to follow what's happening on Chinese social media, and it is. But like I said before, I think that America is going to claim the economic damage of this virus at the Chinese government, and that they are not going to repay the debts to China. Another thing which is going to happen is that, because don't forget, the Chinese government is the richest in the world, because the Chinese government owns the land, all the land in the country. You cannot buy land in China. You can only rent it. So you can rent land, you cannot buy it. So what is happening is that the Chinese government can borrow all the money they want inside China, but outside, because they have, as a backup, they have the land. So China can buy up a lot of companies which are in trouble now in America, in Europe, but also in the ASEAN regions.
So for everybody, just to say, that is so confusing for everybody. It's like China seems to be losing the battle against Corona in a very big way, and then on the other hand, they still have some tricks up their sleeves, and it's so difficult to find sort of the end game in this, as they call it. Like, what is this heading towards? We see America and China, and that's the difficulty about this thing. And we all want to know, what does that do to the ASEAN region? People are generally quite positive about the ASEAN region and their chances, their resilience, and so on.
Of course, because the ASEAN region it has good governments. I'm very, very positive about the ASEAN region, because you have good governments, and the governments know how to deal with state capitalism. The only thing I'm worried about is are Chinese companies are going to buy up companies in the ASEAN regions which come in trouble now, because then the Chinese dominance is going to be much bigger than it was before. That is now a worry in Europe, because Chinese companies are now buying up, or they want to buy up, a lot of vital companies in Europe, and our governments don't like that. For example, the Dutch government prevented a Chinese company buying up a shipbuilding company in Holland, a big shipbuilding company in Holland, because they lost all their orders.
So that's the big worry, right? That's the big worry for the ASEAN region, is they keep their autonomy, and that they make sure that they are the boss in their own borders.
Yeah, of course, they should stay the boss in their own borders, and I think they can, because many economies in the ASEAN region are strong enough. They can get all the investments they want. They only have to focus on, what do I want, where do I want to go, which should be my march route.
Yeah, and I think another thing that, for example, Vietnam mainly doesn't do is long-term planning. That is not something that is in the DNA of the Vietnamese. That is something that we as the Dutch kind of bring to this country. But now more than ever, this seems to be a moment where long-term planning will bring a solution, right? Because the coming half year, everybody will be in big trouble, or the coming year, maybe the coming 2 years. But if you are able to, like China, make a 5-year or even a 10-year plan and try and follow that.
Right. It is really one thing we can learn from the Chinese. The Chinese plan in 5 or 10 or 20 years. They are good in long-time planning. And that is what the ASEAN countries should learn from the Chinese. Long-time planning. And they can, because, for example, I saw it in South Korea. Up till 1970, South Korea had no ship manufacturing industry. Then the government decided, we're going to build ships, cargo ships for the whole world. And they started it. It was long-term planning, and it took 10, 20 years. But now South Korea manufactures more ships than all Western countries combined. So You can have a look at South Korea, because they really. I had to speak in South Korea in October, and really I spoke to the economic advisor of the president, and this guy is the one who designs the economic policies of South Korea, and he's brilliant, and he's just he's an economist, and he's brilliant, and they really have this long-term vision. It's not only China, South Korea, ASEAN countries have it as well, and they can learn from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to look at questions from the crowd, because end of the day, that is the most important and urgent. I'm seeing a question from Wieger, who's asking, should we in the future focus on strengthening the immune system of people through more healthy lifestyles and food? What do you think about that?
Well, I see now on screen this picture of this cruise ship. The main reason why the virus spread on cruise ships was through the aerosol systems. But aerosol systems are also things we have in hotels and also in hospitals. So that is really a problem. That is one of the reasons why the virus is spreading. So even if our immune system is perfect, if we stay in an environment with an aerosol system where the virus is going through the air, it doesn't help. But I do agree, yes, we should focus on strengthening ourselves, strengthening our immune system. So we have to sport, we have to go to the gym, we have to practice, we have to meditate, we have to eat healthy, we have to, yes, of course.
Of course, but now more than ever, that would be it. And do you think there will be I read your pre-read, and that is also about a holistic way of living, and you think that is going to be more a thing of the future, even more than it is today. Is that right?
Definitely. We have to look at a lot of things in a more holistic way, because we are now going to live in what I call the post-material economy, the economy of happiness. I also call it the happinomy. Because we are now living into the emotional revolution is going on as well. We had the industrial revolution in the 19th century. Now we have the technological revolution, the second machine age, but we also have the emotional revolution, because a lot of rational things are picked over by the computers and artificial intelligence and the robots. So what stays for us as human beings, that's emotions. Yeah. And so we will get an economy which is driven by emotions, because the E of economy is also the E of emotions.
That's interesting. I would need to think about that for a second or two before going on about that. It will be interesting to see how a world that is not driven by money would look like. It looks like a very socialist view on the world. Are you a socialist, Adjiedj?
No, have a look at everything here. It doesn't look like a socialistic interior.
It doesn't. I'm just trying to...
I think the future is not left or right. The future will be a recombination of left and right issues. Because I think we are going to need capitalism, we're going to need innovation, and that is only prospering in a free society, in a capitalistic society, because of course people also work to get money. The one who's going to invent the vaccine is going to become famous and rich, and that's fine. So that's why people all over the world are competing against each other to come up with it. So that's fantastic. No, I'm not a socialist, but I do think that we have to worry about what we are going to do to help the losers of this crisis, all the people who are going to get unemployed. What are we going to do? The government in Holland is now helping companies to pay the salaries and to pay up. I think that should happen in the ASEAN countries as well, but I think the governments are wise enough to do that. Yeah. Because all these people who are going to get unemployed, we have to be careful that they're not going to get angry and they're not going to burn our houses, because watch out for rage. Yeah. Because rage, many people are going to get angry.
But to a certain extent, we will have no choice but to treat people without a job differently if your unemployment rates go to historic heights, right? Because if you don't, then they will become not a majority, but a too large part of society, and that will be very dramatic. Is that right?
Yeah, and then they can create revolutions. For example, look like happened the communist revolution in Russia happened because 100 years ago, because of mass unemployment. People had no jobs. People were angry, so they rose against the establishment.
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
So there is Stefan asking a question. Stefan asks, with China manufacturing relocating, what do you think will happen with the One Belt, One Road strategy?
I think that the One Belt, One Road strategy is going to really get in trouble because relocating is going. What I see, for example, with Western companies in Europe and America, they don't want to become so dependent from China anymore. So they are going to relocate manufacturing through ASEAN countries to India. And also, they're going to relocate it back to the West, back to Europe, and back to America. For example, with mouth masks, the masks for in Holland, we don't want to be dependent anymore for these masks. From other countries, we want to manufacture them here.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. Okay, finishing this answer, moving on to another picture, which we're going to get to Sander's question later on the nature of the virus. I'm now going to answer Jacco's questions, which is about your ideas on the consequences of the virus on social, cultural aspects and consumer behavior.
Well, I do think, for example, what you see is that a lot of people are cautious to spend their money. But I think the behavior, I'll give you an example. We see now on screen this Coron Air. This is a cartoon about future of flying. Last week, the government of Italy announced that if tourists want to come to the island of Sicily on holidays, the Italian government pays your ticket and pays 3 or 4 nights of your hotel. The rest you have to pay yourself. So what I understand, if it is safe to travel, if the airlines can guarantee that the virus is not mutating to aerosols, and if we all wear our mouth masks, even without being a vaccine anymore, that I think there will be, especially young people, will want to go to Sicily and go on holidays there. So the future of tourism will be tourism and travel will be influenced, of course, by a virus, by a vaccine, but also by new ways of funding traveling. And this Italian idea is an interesting one. So the government pays. So would that happen, for example, in Vietnam or Thailand, that let's say if they want to attract tourists from Europe, and then the government pays, for example, with the state-owned airlines like Thai Air or Singapore Airlines, they say, okay, we pay your ticket, you're getting your ticket for free if you spend at least 10 or 15 nights in our country.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept.
That's an interesting concept indeed. But do you not think that if the volume goes out of flying, that then that's what you probably would think, is that then prices will go down dramatically, right? Go up dramatically.
Well, if you have a look at this picture now, that is a designer's design for the planes. And then you could, if you have this plexiglass caps on all over the chairs, then they think it could happen. But if, let's say, the middle chairs would stay empty, it would mean that this would go up 30%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at least probably more.
But probably more. But I like the idea that you see that the industry is very creative now, coming up with ideas like this, which I think. But the real problem is, and people have to wear masks. But the real problem is the virus spreading in planes through the aerosol systems or not. That is the real problem. And if we can guarantee that the aerosol systems are so perfect, if we can re-engineer them in ways that the virus cannot spread in the plane, and then I think that a lot of people are going to fly again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you think the aviation industry will, in that sense, can go back to normal if there would be, for example, a vaccine to the virus and everybody would be vaccinated? Do you think we will fly as excessively? Because I'm asking because Christina says, for example, that she actually is hoping for a more conscious, enlightened kind of consumption, still consuming, but not as brazenly and wantonly as before, she says.
Well, people cannot consume as brazenly and wantonly as before because they have less money to spend. A lot of people lost a lot of money in this crisis, so they cannot consume as much as they wanted before. They cannot afford it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult to see how that, that consequence of that crisis is so much going to affect our lives, where I see that in Vietnam, things are almost at 85% anymore. If I'm looking out the window here and traffic is as busy as it was.
Yeah. And if you look at Thailand, for example, in Bangkok, half of the citizens of Bangkok was cooking for the other half of the citizens of Bangkok. I really wonder what this is going to do with all the restaurants and food in Bangkok. But if you can have this plastic screens between the tables and we can organize all of these things, then I think it might pick up again. But in the city of Wuhan in China, where it all started, I see that the restaurants are open again, but a lot of people are not coming anymore.
Yeah,
So
a lot of people are not coming anymore. Yeah, that's difficult. And I thought that the new concepts of hospitality and how you should go to the beach and all that did not look so attractive to me.
Right.
I'm looking at a question of Joost, who says, at the same time, many people in the East cannot afford a holistic lifestyle still. Also, the East looks more in control of the virus. Economic damages seem to be higher in the West. So what should be a reason that they could listen to us? The East would listen to us as in us in the West.
Well, I don't know. Well, currently what you see is that everybody is now thinking and rethinking, but we don't know the solutions yet because we have never experienced. Of course, we had pandemics before. You in Asia, you had SARS before. That was, I think, 20 years ago. In Africa, where I work quite a lot, they had Ebola, the Ebola virus before. And even that there's no vaccine against Ebola, even that you see that it is busy again. It is busy again at the markets. It is busy again. So I think that in Africa, people will pick up again, and quite a lot of shops and markets will be busy again, because they learned from Ebola. And I think in the ASEAN region too, you learned so much from SARS that you could use again. For example, measure the temperatures of people everywhere so that you can check if people have a fever or not. So you already have the system in Asia that you cannot enter a plane if you have a fever, because the airlines check your temperature. So I think that is wonderful. We don't have that in the West. In Holland, you can enter a plane and your temperature is not checked. I think that's ridiculous. We can learn from Asia.
Yeah. I'm seeing, it's interesting. I'm seeing an interesting question from Eric asking if Corona adds new stress points to society. Because we have the current stress points are rich, poor, and digital. That's what he's mentioning. Do you think that there will be new stress points because of Corona? Or does it drive the current problems in the rich and poor to a new level, you think?
Well, the digitization is now going to happen much faster than before. We have 5G internet now, 6G is going to come up. So let's assume you want to talk to me with 6G, maybe I can be beamed without a screen just right on your table, sitting across you. Why would I travel again? Or why would I go into the car again? Because that is, so I think that the digitization is now going so fast, so incredibly fast, that it is going to create, the digitization is going to create some new stress points. One of the points, the stress points we had before the corona crisis was loneliness. In Holland, 1 in 3 persons call themselves lonely. It's not only the elderly, it's also young people. So loneliness is going to become one of the stress points. Yes.
Loneliness is going to be one of the stress points, and at the same time, you see that there are more and more means of communications, right? So there could also be very interesting solutions out there. Is that right?
Right. Right. People are meeting now. People are meeting now, and people are now connecting now, and that is the nice thing. So I really think that people are going to create new communities to reconnect each other in the future, and that's fine.
New communities to reconnect with each other in the future. I'm looking for questions from the crowd. Let me see if I can find another one. There's a question again about aviation industry. You made an interesting article about that. So, but what Wieger has mentioned, and what I would like to mention, what I would like to take up, is cheap mass travel. That may be a thing of the past. And
yes, I definitely believe that cheap mass travel is a thing of the past. Flying will become more expensive, and it will be available to less people than before. Here in Europe, you could fly for 20 euros from Amsterdam to Italy. That's a thing of the past. I don't think that is going to return back.
No.
And and I also see a question of people saying, do we have to redesign the planes, the interior of the planes? I think so too. Yes, of course, we have to redesign the interior of the planes so people can travel safely. And I think that will be possible. Also with new kind of plexiglass solutions and other things, we're going to create it. Because don't forget, human beings are creative. Human beings are we are the most creative animal on earth.
But what do you think about the most creative animal on earth and their particular behaviors? What do you think the trends in terms of FMCG and consumer behavior are going to be? What is it going to look like?
Well, what we see in Holland now is that a lot of people are robbed on the street, even in daylight, from their gold Rolex watches. So I call this the de-Rolexing of society. And the owner of Cartier, one of the richest men in the world, Johann Rupert, warned that people are not going to show as much jewelry and watches as they used to be, because they will be afraid that they will be robbed by impoverished people. And that is, I believe that is an issue, yes. And so I think people are going to have a more sober appearance. So sober clothes, not trying to look too rich, and more sober cars and etc. Because it's so that's also going to happen, because criminality is on the rise. Don't forget, criminality is on the rise. Always in times of crisis, we see more criminality, we see more robberies, we see more burglars, we see more of these things. And so don't show off your wealth.
Yeah. Don't show off your wealth, even if you have it, because a lot of people are going to lose their wealth. So that will be one reason for people to dress more soberly. Are you going to
I
dress more soberly, Adjiedj? Do you think that?
look. I'm Asian too, and we Asians love to show our wealth. So we love to show our diamonds,
Yes,
etc.
you've got
We
diamonds.
cannot anymore because we're going to be robbed.
On that, where do you live actually, Adjiedj?
Just wear your diamonds in bed.
Very good. Okay, so that is a good one. More sober. And what do you? Where we touched the topic of digital already. Do you think that people will make more digital purchases to maybe, if you have more digital interactions, then maybe you want to show off your wealth in a more or absence of
Well,
wealth or your
if you have a look at the Chinese web shop of Alibaba, of AliExpress,
Sure.
AliExpress started in the economic recession of 2008 because people did not go to the shops anymore, and then AliExpress came up with cheaper alternatives, and you can just order it right from your house, and it could go. So I think, yes, people will go. Yes, okay, e-commerce is going to rise, but people are also going to look at what kind of designs that don't look too expensive, don't look too glittering, and
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so going back to questions from the crowd again, one of the big issues revealed by the shutdown, says Koen, is how dangerously dependent we have become of just-in-time production. China, they are.
Well, just-in-time production is one thing of the past. Definitely, GIT is not coming back.
But that means that warehouses and so on, they will have flourishing times then, right? Because you will need to stock more.
Of course. And also, one of the things you should be aware of, in times of pandemics, people leave cities and move to rural areas. We saw that with the pest in the Middle Ages, people fled the cities and moved to rural areas. So I think if you can do a lot of your work from home, why should you stay in a congested city with a lot of viruses? Or maybe you can do it from out of home somewhere in the mountains in Vietnam or Thailand or whatever. So what you already see in America, for example, people are leaving New York because New York is one of the epicenters of the virus, of the pandemic. People are leaving it and move to rural areas, and they can work online to work online in the New York economy. So that trend is called urbanization. In the old days, we moved to cities as urbanization, but return from urban areas to rural areas, that is called rurbanization. And that is definitely a trend, because what are we going to do with all the skyscrapers in the cities with the aerosol systems? Because that is really something I don't have an answer yet, but next week I have a meeting with some real estate developers for the city of Rotterdam in Holland, where we have a lot of these skyscrapers and a lot of these with the aerosol systems, and that is really worrying real estate people.
That's interesting, but let's just go back to the just-in-time production thing. You're saying it's a thing of the past. Okay, warehouses and logistics will change, but products will become drastically more expensive if you cannot do just-in-time management. How will we tackle this problem? Is the answer simply less consumption, or are there other things that we can think of?
No. Well, in some industries we will have less consumption. In other industries we still have consumption, but I think we will have shorter supply chains and more regional supply chains. And I don't know if you switch to regional supply chains, if that means that it's going to become terribly more expensive. I don't know that yet, because we are going to experiment with it now. This period of dismantling just-in-time management has just started.
Yeah, that's one. Christina, I'm trying to read a question. Christina is stating that local homegrown brands can maybe now compete easier with large international brands. And maybe additionally to her question, you could say that an extra selling argument would be the fact that things are regionally and homegrown, so that you have certainty of your purchase.
I think that Christina is right, that a lot of people will try to favor local or regional brands. For example, in Holland, you already see that people prefer to buy from local farmers. That is fine. But the trend in retail today is that the big stores are the winners. Amazon is the big winner today of retail. Amazon is buying up all the passenger planes which are empty now and turning them into cargo planes. Amazon is hiring thousands of new people, and Amazon is not a local player. And the same is happening with AliExpress. So I don't know. I think some local shops and some local manufacturers, yes, they will benefit from it. But I think the biggest ones like Amazon will also grow. And maybe the ones in the middle, and the ones in the middle will lose.
Yeah. But Amazon, in fact, was always already a helper for smaller companies because they had that tremendous distribution network.
Right.
So that's just going to be more and more. So the big ones.
Yeah, because now Amazon is buying all the planes. Have a look. Amazon is buying thousands of planes, which are empty, the passenger planes, and because you can buy a passenger. Do you want a passenger plane, Guido? You can buy it now very cheaply. They're all on sale.
I have to have a word with my members about that one.
And Amazon is turning them into cargo planes. It's fantastic to see. So I really admire the concept of Amazon because they are, I think Amazon will be one of the big winners of this crisis.
Yeah, I have a thing or two to say about Amazon, but that's maybe for some other time. I see that Marco with NDBC has a nice question because you mentioned crime picking up. This is something that I also see happening in my own neighborhood, for example. There have been a drastic increase of burglaries in my neighborhood. Do you foresee an increase in security forces around the world, like military, police, and armed forces, private armies, maybe?
I think that's a very good question of Marco because he's right. Yes, of course, we're going to see more police, more soldiers, and also the private security firms are also going to grow, but also the systems because you can do a lot with cameras and all this other digital protection. So I think the technological protection, we're going to see, yes, of course.
Okay, that is very interesting. I'm going to ask of Tien if he can just put up the slide of the ADCN, please. And Adjiedj, I want you to think about while I speak a little bit about the ADCN, because that's what we are representing. This is okay. We have had an hour where we have touched many subjects, and sometimes it was great and very positive. Then again, it's very negative. In the coming minute, maybe we will ask a poll to people on that's more technical about when they would like a webinar. But if you were to make an executive summary, like the 3 takeaways, Adjiedj, for that people need to in the ASEAN region and you can totally choose if that's business or personal. What do you think people really need to take into account in the coming period?
Well, the whole supply chain. I would say rethink the supply chain and the regional supply chains in the ASEAN regions, because if you are able to come up with a good redesign of this regional supply chains, then you'll be a winner.
Okay, yeah, a regional supply chain. So if you come up with a good solution for a regional supply chain, then you're going to be a winner. Right. I'm checking right now if there is a poll available. Are there polls in the? Yes. So you click one of those two. Yeah. So we're now going to do 2 polls about the technicalities of. Are you? We're now looking into what we see is we had about 100 registrations. We started with about 70 people. We kept everybody throughout the ride. We're now at 62 attendees. If you have any stringent questions, then please ask them now. Adjiedj is now still here. We're going to show a post read of the webinar, and what I would specifically like to know is now, we started this webinar concept with the ADCN chamber. There are 6 business chambers of commerce, if you will, in the ASEAN region, because we had no choice. Usually we would always organize seminars, and it's a beautiful thing that we now try to add value for our members and also some prospective members by talking to them in a way like this. And this is a very much an economic outlook, or not an economic outlook, it's an outlook on the world from a various perspectives. And the poll that we're sharing now is that we're asking if people are interested in more webinars post COVID-19. And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. So 97%, 32 people say yes, and there's only 1-2 person that say, well, this was nice, but maybe no more. And now I'm going to ask of you, Tien, again, to do the other poll, because we would like to know when, especially when people would like to have this, because now it's 4 o'clock in our region, and we would like to see if that is about right. I see that this is, we actually did it right. We nailed it with close of business time between 4 and 5, maybe even 5 and 6. Adjiedj, do you feel that you said what you wanted to say, or are there any topics that you feel are left untouched?
Well, what I would also say, in the ASEAN region, you have much more experience with the masks to protect you against viruses than in other regions, and also with design masks. I see quite a lot of them, so that is an interesting one. And the next, so maybe manufacturers of designers masks they will become very big, but what you always see in a time of crisis, the Chinese word for crisis has 2 characters. One is danger, the other one is opportunity. So what you see in a time of crisis, a lot of people become much more innovative than they were before, and a lot of brilliant startups are moving up. I mentioned Amazon and I mentioned AliExpress in 2008. So I think watch out for a lot of brilliant, innovative people, insiders or outsiders in your company, who come up with ideas that might work.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know if you have banks there or insurance companies who could fund these brilliant startups who are coming up now.
Yeah, I can think of a few startups that I would want to grow further, and we will see about that. It's actually a nice idea that from the depths of a crisis, actually the most beautiful and next generation ideas will emerge.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not that negative about this crisis. So let's stay positive. Let's stay focused. Take enough time to rest, to meditate, to focus, or to do yoga or whatever. And then have a look around at the possibilities, because I think there are lots and lots and lots of possibilities now for business.
That is a very positive ending to this webinar. We have reached about the 1 hour mark, and thank you so much for making time, and thank you to all the attendees for making time. It was very nice. People are now saying thank you and bye bye on the webinar screen. So
okay, bye bye all of you, and have a nice day, and see you next time.
See you next time. And everybody says thank you. Thanks. Have a good day. What we're going to do is we are going to send a post read. We're also going to place this video on YouTube. Along with the post read will come a few articles from your hand, Adjiedj, on aviation, on retail, on the world past Corona. And I know you're a very connected guy. So if people want to reach out to you with specific questions, or even
they can always ask.
want to buy a
And
book.
especially the one who comes for a solution for the aerosol systems, because the company which comes up for a solution for the aerosol systems to prevent the aerosol systems from spreading the virus,
Yeah,
that guy or lady is going to become very rich.
and that would be, for example, a disinfectant in the air. Perhaps.
Something like I don't know what it is, but go ahead and think
Yeah.
and brainstorm with other people, and I think some solutions
Slam your
will come up.
head against your desk until something useful comes out. What is your website, Adjiedj? What is your website?
Bakas.nl.
Bakas.nl. Adjiedj Bakas. I am sharing that with everybody. Share now. Go there. Buy a book, for example, right? That is always allowed. Buying a book. There's nothing wrong with buying a book. If you don't like it, you can always put it on fire.
Right. The book is called the New Renaissance.
The new
Because I really believe in the Middle Ages we had the pest pandemic, the pestilence, and at the same time the Renaissance. And I think this pandemic is also going to create a new Renaissance. So I think after this is solved, my expectation is about 2024. In the summer of 2024, the Renaissance is going to start.
The summer of 2024. Why do we have to wait so long? It's now 2020 and the summer is about to start. It's going to be the summer of Adjiedj.
That's only 4 years. That's only 4 years, my friend. That's still quite short.
Yeah, you know about that. You know how fast time goes by. I'm very sure. Adjiedj, thank you so much. Thanks again. It was really a pleasure to speak to you. Very interesting ideas. Very entertaining guy in general, and very positive outlook on the world. That's what we are all looking for. I'm very sure.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to join you.
All right, lovely. Have a good day, Adjiedj, and I'm ending the session now. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.